Things you won't regret as a software engineer. This is not the list that I would have written when I started out. I've been coding since I'm like around 16. But over the time, I noticed that there are things that only have an upside. So there are things that have almost no downside. And of course, these things we should do more, because no serious engineer ever regrets doing more of these. And the first thing I want to dive right in is write extra tests. They do take time and they're tedious, but in the end, they are really good thing. Interestingly, last year I published a piece called the 80-20 of testing. That was a post, I think we have it here. I basically made the point that you can write too many tests. I would still stand for that, and I would still say that's true. If you need to ship fast, you need to cut down on some tests. But usually this case is the much worse one. And so I posted this on LinkedIn and got a bit of backlash because I basically said you only need integration tests and feature and front-end tests, and all this other stuff you can just leave out. I got a bit of backlash on LinkedIn, and now I would say, yeah, you wouldn't regret if you write more tests. The next thing that now really helps us in our team is to sketch solutions before we start coding. Because the thing is this, like we start to develop a feature and we think we have the solution right away. We're intuitive, we're all smart, but then we get carried away with this, and then there's some edge case coming up. So this edge case will basically destroy the whole approach, and then we need to rework that. So there is a solution how to do that. It's basically this. It's a very simple solution, but people don't do this, and this is crazy. First think and then code. And of course the question is, how do you think? People usually don't sit down and meditate. They need something to work with. And so that's why in our company, we're making this kind of thing. It's a solution sketch, and here's a sample for you. It looks like this. It just basically has an intro, and I would say it would be even better if we would have like some kind of narration in here. I come to that later. And then we sketch the data model, and maybe we have even different designs. So then we can challenge that. So we can invite someone who then challenges this design with an alternative. And then from the data model, we then go up and have some kind of interaction timeline. How does the user actually get those models into the database? And then we maybe have even some front-end sketches. This is here, we're using Ruby on Rails and Hotwire, which uses TurboFrame. So it's good to make up your mind of how the front end is actually composed. And yeah, you can have then more explanations on it, and you can just discuss this with the other engineers. And this proved to be very helpful. So yeah, code later, and this is the sketch. The next thing we want to talk about is the CI/CD, and that's something I have been guilty of, because I think only maybe last year I really learned how to set things up myself. Before that, I would always get other people to do this for me. And it actually makes sense. And I did this after talking to this guy, Nico Dulthard. Yeah, this is our thumbnail. It's not written yet. You will get this once it's online. Basically what he said is DevOps, let's say continuous integration, continuous delivery, is something that you only need to do once. It's a skill you learn. So you set it up, and after that you can apply it over and over again. So the initial investment is high, but after that you can just reap the rewards over and over again. And this has been proven to be very beneficial for my company as well. Because I wanted to touch base on this. This is often being done too late. And one is actually in the career of a developer. They learn that too late. They think they first need to develop features and so on, and learn front end, learn back end, and it all makes sense. But actually knowing DevOps teaches you so much about systems, about security, about workflows, about team collaboration. Yeah, so devs usually learn it too late, and also PMs demand it too late in the project. Imagine you have a project where CI/CD is set up very fast, very early in the project, let's say in the first week. Then they can deploy to staging or even to production, to some kind of banner page within a week, within the first 2 weeks or so. So having this early in the project enables the team to get feedback from clients much faster. Okay, next thing, documentation. Yes, this is a pet peeve of a lot of people. They don't want to write documentation, and I get that. And some people say you write documentation in the code, and I also get that and it makes sense. However, when it comes to documentation, I have a specific opinion about it. I only want to know why something is there. If you know the background of why something was built, then you also have like an introduction of the backstory of what happened there, and then why this decision was taken. Let's say you see some code that's just not written well, or it's just not performant. Let's say, best example, you have code that's not performant at all. You know there is an n+1 query and it just sucks. you might get upset about it. But if the person writing it would have written, I know this approach, it would be like this and like that, and you would kill the n+1 query there. However, this feature is only used once per month by the accountant. So that's why we don't do it. That's why I didn't write this feature in a better way. It makes sense, and then you can move on. So writing the why is very important, and this kind of goes hand in hand with this memo approach of Jeff Bezos. He has this 6-pager template, the 6-pager memo. This is not the blog of Jeff Bezos, but the idea is from him, and this basically shows real clear how you write a memo. I don't say you should write documentation like this, but you can get a lot of inspiration from this website here, where they have a lot of teachings about writing. And what I like most about it is this narrative approach. You don't write this does that and this is the reason. It's like, I had to develop this feature and this was a problem, and then I noticed this is only used once, that's why it is like this. So if you tell a story, the other developers will understand it much faster. Another thing that people often don't do enough is talking to customers. I've been guilty of that as myself, but in the end, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I still wanted to include it. Nobody ever regret to have talked to another customer. I interviewed 2 people here, 2 successful SaaS founders, it's Cesar Halmalgian and John Reineck. And I think both interviews are still on my blog and not exactly done yet. But you can check them out. They're going to be published later on my blog. So this guy here is highly successful and he's not technical. And he really he taught me back then when I had the interview that it's super important to talk more to customers. Cool, next point. Leave a problem until tomorrow. Also kind of obvious, but we all know this when we sit in the evening and we just bang our head against it and we just want to finish it, and we know we won't finish it. And suddenly in the morning, when we slept a night over it, then we find the solution. And this is a phenomenon that probably everybody experienced. I just want to put it here on top of our list because it's so important. There's a study about it. We just did some research here. A lot of sleep studies is a meta study of a lot of other studies. This stuff is real. Memory is getting better when there's REM, good deep sleep involved. For me, I now have a really good sleep score. I track everything with an Apple Watch, which it's charging somewhere. It's just an Apple Watch 6 and it does the trick. It shows me with an app called Auto Sleep, this app here. So I use this app now probably every night, except maybe 3 or 4 times where I forgot it, for the last 3 years, and I know pretty much my sleep score every day. So that's my formula. No food and drink after 7 p.m. I go to bed very early, 9 to 10. I get up also early, and a cold room. Cold room is super important. Also, yeah, people say you should not watch stuff. Don't use your iPad. Don't use your phone. To me, it didn't make a difference. I can totally watch a series and then just sleep. So for example, like Shogun, which I recently watched. But yeah, now I also read a Kindle just because I think it makes more sense for me. The last thing I want to talk about is writing a blog, and this is why you see this here as well. I just talked with a friend and he said, Till, I was so stupid. I could have documented everything like 10 years ago. It was all in my head. I just didn't write it down. Writing a blog usually is a very good thing. And there are a couple of, apart from learning how to write, which I described earlier, what is really good is actually it helps the career. And I found this thing on Hacker News, which is quite interesting. So this guy got his job. Let me make this bigger. There are people getting the job from it. This guy here, there was a guy who, the 4 years honors project was based on one of his blog posts. And they didn't even know him. Yeah, this is amazing. So of course, this is a success bias. There are all these successful people like getting a book deal and so on. But still, there is something positive about writing a blog, even if it's just learning how to write better. Cool. And that's why I wrote this blog post. And yeah, tomorrow you might find another one. And I'll try to also speak over them on YouTube. So please subscribe to my channel and learn more about software development. This channel is all about how we get projects done. See you soon.